18 years ago, there were big changes in the world. The real world is connected to the otherworldly dimension gate. Those who have talent go through dungeons, kill monsters and take treasures, after which they receive the title of hero. Such people are called hunters, and those who have no talent are left with nothing. The unfinished medicine of hunters costs $20. A ring without reinforcing properties is garbage. It costs only $10. Shen found all this in a dump, in a slum, and put it in a bag to sell later. Just the same, Shen is one of those who has no talent. Walking down the street, Shen wondered if he had enough for food. Here some stranger bumps into Shen's shoulder. It was his friends who instantly took away from him a bag of things that Shen wanted to sell. The guy kept telling them not to make him angry, otherwise they would pay. Those who immediately did not like his tone, and they decided to show him who is in charge here. While Shen was standing, they started beating him to death. At this time, a man in glasses and a suit came up, and his servant in a white mask and with an umbrella with which he was covering the boss was standing next to him. The man told them not to kill Shen, because who will pay him the money? And then he reminded Shen how his father died. The guy saw with his own eyes how his father hanged himself on a rope loop. His dad borrowed money at interest in the hope of turning Shen into a hunter. Now the guy has to pay off the debt. And after the man said that his father committed suicide because Shen was born garbage. After these words, the guy could not stand it and hit the man in the face so that his glasses flew off. But no, the man did not answer himself. His bodyguard did it. He hit him so that poor Shen almost turned into a cake. The man stepped on the guy's chest with his foot and said that how dare he compete with such a status. Shen groaned that he would pay everything in a month. But if not, he would give his liver and kidney. But if he pays on time, then the man will kneel before his father's grave and admit all his mistakes. The boss agreed. There was a set in the dungeon. All those who survive will receive 1 million, those who die 500,000, and those who run away with nothing. Shen agreed, immediately calculated in his thoughts. In order to pay in full, it is necessary to go through the dungeon 70 times. A man came up and Shen told him that he definitely would not die and would not retreat, but would fight to the last. The man liked that Shen was so excited. After the guy walked a little forward, another guy approached the man and asked if this was the guy named Trash from the slums. The man replied that this is the best cannon fodder and that after death they are not paid, because they are here only to be human shields and for them it is very profitable. With the words "go ahead," this man approached the gate, but before opening it, he decided to make a small announcement. In this announcement, the man said that in addition to the usual team, there were many new newcomers and 3 temporary allies. The man pointed at these words to Shen. After the man said that he hoped that everyone would get along with the newcomers. The rules are the same. The reward of any participant who violates the raid will be cancelled and will not be paid. Here a girl with mint-colored hair approaches Shen and asks if he knows how to use the Abyss system. Shen asked what kind of system. The girl immediately explained that the Abyss system was created by technologist Shen Zhu, and this is a system that makes it possible to see the status of other people. Then, after these words, she put her hand to his ear and immediately saw Shen's status. Again, like everyone else, she called him garbage without signs of an elevated level, and at the end added that Shen was just a weakling. Then she wished good luck and did not die, and then left. The man announced that when the transitional gates appear, temporary allies will go in front, tanks will follow them, and support will go from behind. After I asked if everyone understood and everyone shouted that yes. The man who was on the team with Shen asked another crying Lao Zhu if he was doing well. He replied that yes, and that he could not retreat now because he had 2 daughters to feed. And the man replied that his wife was sick and he also needed money, and that if they didn't work out, then it turns out they sacrificed their lives in vain. After they asked if it was Shen's first time here, he nodded. The uncle in the same team, whose wife is sick, was surprised that Shen was so calm and therefore thought he already had experience in this matter. The gates opened and our heroes went forward. The uncles from the team that Shen was in were wondering, because they have been walking for so long, but they have not yet stumbled upon more than 1 monster. One was summoning monsters because he was bored and he already wanted to fight them. The chief shouted for him to shut up and not be able to summon the death mark. Lao asked Shen if it didn't seem strange to him that it had turned cold at the intersection. Shen visited upstairs and wondered why there was such a big hole, and the fact that this is the lair of monsters. There were spiders sitting on top. They were small rock spiders of the 3rd level with 20 HP. The chief shouted that they were just small spiders and that they should continue to go forward and not show themselves cowards, and asked if they needed more money. Lao said that he would go first to check, since they were just small spiders, and wished good luck. As here a huge spider with its legs pierces the man's head and red liquid begins to drip from his body. Shen looks at it with fright and does not understand from shock what happened. It was a demonic mutated spider with the 30th level and 301,700 HP. The man gave the command to remain calm and that everyone should get in line and get ready for battle. It was an elite monster. Luckily it has cannon fodder as shields, and if it doesn't work out, then the team won't be able to stop the spiders. The commander, worried about the situation, was thinking about it. It was bad because the dangerous spider was not one commander and his strong team, and the uncle and Shen were randomly divided into teams. A large spider crawled onto the group where Shen was, and the man, crying with fear, began to ask the commander to help them. After these words, the commander hit the spider with all his might, and then yelled at his uncle, because doesn't he see that he is busy, and that if the uncle wanted to die, then go ahead. While they were listening to the commander's screams, a spider attacked Shen from behind. The guy put glow sticks under protection, and while the spider broke it, Shen had time to run away. Well, Spider and Shen met eyes. A girl with meat hair began to give advice so that the day did not fly in the clouds, but rather open the abyss system, and then let him summon screaming and protective objects. Instead of Shen's answer, the girl heard the commander's cry. He said that the healer spit on this food and let her not climb, but do her job. Shen recalled from the words of the healer, the abyss system can summon weapons and equipment, and since Shen had no choice and no way out, he decided to use the abyss system. A shield appeared and he protected Shen from a strong blow from the spider. After the sword appeared, Shen could not retreat anywhere and Shen struck at the spider, but it did not affect the spider and he jumped up like a flea and wanted to kill Shen. But the captain protected him by smearing the spider's head with a hammer. The captain praised Shen because he is not bad for a beginner. The commander did not expect that Shen would have the courage to fight elite monsters. The guy with the ponytail and blue hair, seeing how Shen tried to overcome the spider, said that at last the garbage had eggs. Another told the commander that all the spiders were killed, and Shen stood in shock and looked at one point in surprise, not believing that he had survived. The uncle was sitting and crying with fear. The guy with blue hair called him garbage and asked if he could get up, and if not, they would leave him here to be eaten. Then the guy said that they would earn great money, and all these were fragments of the 3rd rank and 1 unit of weapons. A thief's dagger, that's what you need. Shen opened his mouth and looked at the sword and thought to himself that this was a professional weapon, and if Shen had one, he would definitely kill monsters with ease. The captain, seeing the thoughtful Shen who dreamed of a sword, came up from behind and put his hand on his shoulder and asked if Shen was jealous and that it was true that his team was lucky, but there are many good items from monsters. And if Shen does not know how, then he will also receive the same weapon. And with a terrible, terrifying smile, the commander said that he had high hopes for Shen. After these words, the commander announced that she had cleared everything in this area, and gave the command to continue moving forward. The commander was looking at his online map where the end of the dungeon should be, and he should be ahead. And judging by the map, there is no such monster with a boss level in this dungeon. But there is a treasure trove, and if the team is lucky, they will be able to find artifacts. The whole team was immediately overjoyed and smiled with happiness. From the analysis of the groups, it follows that the chances of getting an artifact are only 0.5 out of 10,000. Each artifact has tremendous power. It is a symbol of a great team. That's why they use a big bait on Uncle and Shen. The team went into the treasury, as it should be. There were gold coins everywhere, but there is one but that the team did not pay attention to. This is a stone silhouette of a monster sitting in the middle. Some of the team already imagined themselves rich, others that they would finally find a girl to marry and live in peace for the rest of the time. Others thought it was just an illusion, but the commander assured them that it was reality. The guy with blue hair had already calculated the approximate amount of gold and counted several billion. The healer now, according to her, with such a sum of money will go on a well-deserved rest. But the quick-witted Shen realized that this was the boss's room. And does the team really care about possible traps? While the guys were amicably gaining gold, the monster decided not to just give them wealth and wake up. Shen said that there was something wrong with the gold. The guy with blue hair clarified what was wrong, and in general Shen was afraid that he would not have enough gold. How abruptly the monster crushes him with his hand like a bug. Then the commander realized that the statue was alive and again gave the command to everyone to build and prepare for the attack. The guy with the staff began to agitate the monster on himself. He shot the monster with a stream of fire. The commander hit his hand with a hammer, and the guy with the coolest sword decided to cut off the monster's head. But the monster shot a beam and killed 2 at once in one fell swoop. The guys stood with their mouths open and could not believe what was happening. The healer said in a low voice that they would not overcome him and they had to retreat. The uncle who was with Shen began to panic again and run away somewhere. While Shen was standing and trying to understand the situation, the commander flew past him, and then the hammer. The commander asked Shen to get him out of the treasury faster, because he does not want to die, and if Shen does this, he will get as much money as he wants. Now that almost everyone from the team was killed, only Shen was left alone with the monster. He only had a small sword and shield in his hands. The pup decided to start attacking, but the monster could not be defeated. The monster took Shen in his hands and pushed him into the distance like a ball. Shen flew with his eyes closed and thinking to himself that he was really flying. There was another statue in the form of a female silhouette where Shen was flying. Above this statue there was an arch with a sharp tip and Shen landed there. His body was pierced through. Red liquid flowed down the edge and a bloody trickle began to flow down the face of the statue. Shen's eyes closed and he began to think that this was death. Shen didn't have it so that he saw the light at the end of the tunnel. He ended up in the water and was sinking down. Then someone runs a foot over his head and orders him to wake up. Shen does not even open and sees a girl in front of him. She said she had been asleep for so long and didn't expect him to wake her up. The girl asked if Shen wanted strength. The girl said that the poor, weak boy whom everyone looked up to. Shen wondered how a girl could fly, and she kept saying that fate had chosen him after all. Shen remembers that he was pierced through with a spear of the statue due to the fact that he was thrown there by a monster. Shen became worried and looked around his body in surprise, looking for an injury. But the girl behind with a malicious smile said that she treated him as an acquaintance. Shen asked who this stranger was. She replied that she was his god, and her name was Adelo, who was locked up here for several centuries. And thanks to Shen, she is free and as a reward he will receive the blessing of the god of fate. Then she handed him a deck of cards in which each card has its own special power, and asked Shen to draw a card. He asked how many cards could be drawn, to which she replied childishly enough, and that from now on she was his master. And he began to take the whole deck of cards, to which Adelo screamed and asked what he was doing. Shen replied with a kind of gambling smile that he was taking everything. Meanwhile, the creepy monster that killed Shen was standing and inspecting the treasury. Due to the fact that Shen took all the cards, he inadvertently imprisoned the goddess in the card itself and subdued her. Adelo began to swear, because what kind of fool takes all the cards at once? At first Shen didn't understand who was talking to him and asked if Adelo was talking to him. Shen was reborn and appeared right next to the monster. The guy did not notice him due to the fact that he was passionate about the card, and yes, he was not satisfied with the fact that there was not one because he took the whole deck. The goddess at this moment continued to swear at him, especially since he still has the courage to say that the card is her strength. And taking all the cards, the forces merged together. After that, Adelo told Shen to quickly pull the card and open his artifact called Fortune Wealth. Shen asked what the artifact was and immediately exclaimed that the card was shining. And then it split and Shen was even more surprised. Adelo shouted that he did not hesitate and quickly pulled the card. Shen pulled out a random card that was in front of him and the girl exclaimed for the key to rise. The goddess of war immediately appeared from the map. She was the invincible god of eternity. Shen never stopped being surprised by everything he saw. The girl at that moment spread her wings and took out her sword and began attacking the monster. When he released a deadly ray from his chest, she closed her wings and the blow was not missed. Then she continued the attack. After defeating the monster, she smiled sweetly and became a card again. A sign appeared that the enemy was defeated and Shen was congratulated on this, because he became a lucky man. The gate opened again and Shen, staring at the exit, hovered. Adelo asked what he was staring at, and she got the answer that why she didn't use the divine door. Angry, the girl replied that first she needed to master her. And hitting Shen, she asked that she would be so small if he took one card like all normal people. And during the battle, Shen destroyed the statue of Adelo, and Shen is not even able to control the full power of the cards. After killing the monster, the guy used only half of all his strength. Shen apologized for all this and said that he wanted to thank the girl for everything, and when he said the name of the goddess, he was mistaken. It was almost the last straw of Adelo's patience. The guy remembered all his past friends and how they ended their last minute of life with this monster and thanked Adelo once again for everything. With a sad expression on her face, she said that in the end, thanks to Shen, she became a warrior and should accompany him for a while. But first she should take a nap. Shen wanted to ask her so many questions, but he didn't have time because she disappeared after falling asleep. Then, while he was not looking, a hunter and a guard came up to him and surrounded him, aiming guns at him. And then the man with red hair said that Shen should go with them. His name was Zia Wang. He was an S-rank black master with the fiery characteristics of a boxer. Shen didn't have time to say anything as he was taken to a cell for interrogation. He was asked the same question, but he answered this question that he was an ordinary civilian citizen who happened to be there by accident. Wan was furious about it, and throwing a chair to the side, he grabbed Shen by his shirt, picked him up and began to say that they saw him coming out of the depths of the earth, and accidentally not being there he could. But Shen says the opposite and claims that he was just passing by. There was a knock on the door and a girl came in and asked if Wan would mind if she interrupted him. Her name was Q, the 4th Master Rank S Electro Mage. Wan threw Shen with anger on his face, and Q began to apologize for the time spent and said that he was free and how else to get out of here. When Shen left, Wan asked that we would really let him go, because he was the only survivor, to which Q replied that this did not explain how Shen cleared the dungeon alone. When Shen came out, the sun was shining brightly and there were many citizens on the street. Finally, he saw the sun for a long time. When Adelo saw Shen, she said that if he hadn't come soon, she would have gone looking for him. Shen asked her why you were here, and at that moment, Adelo's face changed and it seemed that she wanted to finish him off. And she began to yell at Shen and say that her strength was with him or that he wanted to get rid of her. She began to beat him, and Shen asked for forgiveness. They approached the hunter's office, but it didn't matter, it was important what Shen planned to do next. He replied that first he would repay the debt, and then he would punish. Already in the building, he is talking to some guy with glasses and smooth hair. He said that he did not expect to see Mr. Shen. The guy got the monster's heart and said that Shen's debt was covered and he didn't owe him anything. Here he says that there is something that the guy has to do. He asked how he could help. This question was followed by a knee answer. Shen exclaimed on his knees and was told that he was a bastard and that he was looking for death. And the big man standing behind him in a black suit and a white mask began to swing with the words, "Don't be so angry." Shen pulls out a card and this man is thrown away by an explosive wave. The first card was a thunder shield. Those who try to unpack it will be shot down by lightning. The guards rushed at Shen to protect the boss, but he used the second card, Sand Explosion, and at that moment from under a fist appeared on the ground that raised everything that was in this room when the blow stopped. Shen began to tell the guy to get on his knees and apologize, and then he would not suffer for himself. Suddenly he was stopped by that guy and asked what kind of cards, what his specialization was, and Shen replied that he did not know himself, but any drawn card becomes his strength. After he pulled out a card and it was with the force of a thunderbolt, but since Shen pulled out such a card, it's worth trying it out on a guy with red hair. So he immediately yelled at Mr. Shen to spare him and not touch him, but there was no stopping him. After they dealt with the guy who was ruining Shen's life, they went to the restaurant with a satisfied face. Adelo beamed when she saw the food that Shen had prepared. The food really looked very appetizing. The goddess apologized for thinking that he was useless because in fact he is a genius in the kitchen. But Shen replied that it was not worth thanking, because thanks to her, he is now alive. Shen said that he tried, but now he can only summon only 3 cards and no more, and then asked the question why it turns out this way. Adelo replied that of course this would be the case, because Shen uses her power, and then returns the power to her, and the fact that Shen can still see the main cards in front of him. The goddess told everything holding a rice ball in her hands, which she ate. Then the moment came to find out where all the cards had disappeared. Shen was so angry that the bitten ball fell out of his hands. Shen began to ask why he had so few cards left and why he used them up so quickly, because he had a lot of cards, since he took everything. Adelo began to explain that Sheg could use much more of her power, as when summoning an immortal goddess. But due to the fact that Shen is lucky, after the fight everything goes to the treasury, including even the unused cards of the guy. And after Shen accumulates a certain amount of MP, he will be able to use all the cards. The guy sat and listened attentively to everything. Adelo went on to explain that after recovering Mr. Shen should continue to go to the dungeon and hunt monsters. After these words, she laughed. Shen ignored the laughter and asked how long it would take Mr. to recover. The girl said that his MP will recover next week. But there is one but. If Shen continues to regret using the Immortal Goddess card again, he will need more than 2 years. The goddess continued, and that if Shen wants to restore Mr., then for this he can absorb the essence of underground creatures. The main maps aren't too bad either. Stone armor, increases speed, no fatigue. These are very useful maps. Shen had the main question, how will these cards help fight the underground monsters? Adelo immediately asked after this question about whether Shen still had those cards. The guy asked what other cards were on, and in response he received that there was a super rare card called Demonic Strike. On this card was drawn the same monster that killed the entire room in the treasury. Treasure Trove of Luck. It can be improved by exterminating monsters. After destroying the enemy, the essence of the monster is placed in the map, and in some cases, you can sign a contract or get some skills. Now the main question reads, will Shen dare to clear the dungeons with 4 cards in his hands? Shen sat at a table in a restaurant and listed the powers it was: speed boost, endurance, and stone armor. Shen's only attacking card was death blow. Shen took a good bite out of the loaf. Adalo, who continued to eat the rice ball, asked if the guy was scared. Shen replied that his resources were limited. And then, with those eyes full of excitement, he said that these 4 cards would be enough for him to go to the dungeon and that now was the time for it. Walking through the sewers, Adalo was indignant that it stinks like dwarfs decompose in this place. Shen replied that it was underground and was called a sewer, where all the wastewater drained. Shen was not too sure that this was the place they needed, because the guy needed to cross the hole to get inside. The magical flow flows in this place continuously, and Adalo is sure that this is the place. Shen continued to doubt because he couldn't see the magic flow. But the goddess did not hear and continued to say her own that in the deeper part of the dungeon there is a looking glass, and there is also a dimension gate. Shen only needs to activate the magic power of the key, and then the door will easily open. That's what happened. They went into the Sea Palace dungeon. The cleaning of the dungeon is on Shen, and if it's too difficult for the guy, then he and Adalo can leave right now. Before Shen could ask where they were, he immediately saw a large lizard-eating fish. Adalo decided to explain what kind of creature it was. It was a lizard man by himself. He didn't look strong, but it becomes very dangerous when they gather in groups, and if you hurt one, then others will attack you. Shen said he would kill him, but you could see there were a lot of them down there. This so-called thresher chooses strong and big friends to kill. Annihilation with a fatal blow, that was Shen's battle plan. To begin with, the guy wanted to provoke the lizards with words, then when they chase them, he activates the speed and endurance cards. According to Shen, this was a great plan. And after that, when the lizards get together, Shen will use the death blow card and kill them all at once. Adalo liked the idea. Shen said that from the moment they could not kill the boss, since he did not receive a single shot. But first he would raise the level, and not only would a hungry lizard attack Shen, the guy immediately uses the death blow card out of fear, and the lizard dies. A scared guy sitting in shock praised the card about how cool it was. As a fist flies right in the face, it's Adalo getting angry again. She called him an idiot and said that Shen used his basic skill and all this was to kill the mob. It was a card to kill the dungeon boss because it was the only attacking skill. But Shen showed the map and said with a smile that the fatal blow had not disappeared and they would be able to use it again. Adalo again called him an idiot and explained that of course the card will remain, because this card is Shen. Just the energy of the card is used and it cannot be used again. Now the main question was how to get them out of the dungeon, because the lizards will soon pass away. After these words, the lizards immediately crawled towards the killer of their brother. The goddess said that she would open the door and Shen would be able to escape. But the guy replied that it was enough for him and that this card was better than so that he could use it again. The lizards continued to chase, while Shen ran away from them. Adalo, flying nearby, said that sooner or later the lizards would drive them into a dead end. But Shen said that this was just his second plan for the possible development of events and that one should always have a backup just in case. And this was Shen's strategy. The guy took out the slowdown card and the lizards became 100 times slower. The goddess screamed that even if they slowed down the monsters, they still don't have a map that would kill them all. Shen replied that didn't he say that this card could be useful, and let it allow the lizard brother to put on a stone shield. And after taking out 2 cards with a tongue and a shield, he made a lizard that was in equipment, and with the help of it they would not need to get involved in the battle. After that, Shen gave the command to the stone lizard to kill all the lizards. One thing Shen didn't understand was why this barrier also affected their lizard. Adalo called the guy a fool again, because the deceleration barrier affects everyone, whether you are an enemy or a friend. Shen then said that their lizard had no chance at all. The goddess asked really if Shen was so stupid or just pretending, because they have a reverse card. Shen said that he had completely forgotten about her, because he wanted to keep her until he escaped. But now I was thinking about her, she would give their lizard a chance to accelerate with incredible force. Shen took the card and used it on the lizard. Before he could blink, he had already scattered and killed everyone. Then bonuses began to come for completing the building. Shen said that with this speed, they would definitely be able to fill the cards with magic. The girl praised Shen for the work done and began to reflect to herself that what was happening was taking an interesting turn, and that Adalo thought that Shen was just a fool who relied on simple luck in order to live a little longer. But the girl did not expect that he would be so inventive and be able to combine cards so interestingly. Whether Shen is brave or smart, it doesn't matter, and what else interesting he will throw out. Shen worriedly said that the zone was temporarily over, but Adalo, as always, calmed down and said that those lizards who remained alive were oppressed by fear. Shen's lizard growled and all the remaining lizards fled with frightened eyes. Shen was so surprised that he won and he got new cards for the victory. When Shen saw his new cards, he exclaimed that it was all lizards and why did he need all this? The cards dropped sharply and the stone lizard suddenly filmed. Shen said that all the lizards were absorbed by the armored lizard from the past. But it evolved, it no longer stood on 4 legs, but on 2 and was completely covered with protection. It was a new power. A system alert has arrived. The armored lizard has completed its evolution. Having reached the highest rank of armored dragon, the racial skills of dragon blood are obtained. Regeneration of the highest class, durability, elementary armor. Shen held the card with this dragon and looked at it more and more surprised each time. Adalo was also surprised by the new look and began to laugh. Shen, embarrassed, asked why she started laughing and already began to worry that the new character would be weak. But she apologized and said that she didn't expect someone to create a new look just using creativity. It turned out to be so interesting and funny that Adalo couldn't help laughing. Regeneration of the highest class, durability, elementary armor, all these were the skills of a new character, and they were very good. If an armored dragon has acquired all these skills, although all these skills are protective, it turns out that an armored dragon is something that Shen is able to summon, which also means that the soul is attached to him. Thus, the skills of the armored dragon will be tied to Shen's body. For Shen, it was strange and he was confused, because he did not understand whether it was true that he was connected with the soul of a lizard. Adalo expected this and said that even if Shen is not able to use skills, it will not be easy to kill him thanks to the armored dragon. Shen began to understand, but he had one question, and it was that from the moment the soul is connected with Shen, will he become a lizard man or one with him? And immediately imagined himself in this form with his tongue sticking out. The girl began to laugh very loudly from Shen's question that she couldn't stop already. It seemed to Shen that he was being ridiculed now. Finally, after a long break for laughter, Adalo replied that, in general, Shen's strength was the reason for her presence, and the fact that his real soul is connected with God, that is, with Adalo, and that let Shen feel flattered since he is immortal. After looking at the loaded face, Shen said that she would postpone the conversation for later, and they also reached the designated place. Far away from the guys there was a statue in the form of a frog holding a jug, and a path of stones led to this statue. This place was the deepest point of the dungeon, the boss room. Shen pointed to the statue and asked if this was the thing he would need to fight with. Adalo explained that it was just a statue and the bastard's personality wouldn't allow him to fight people. Shen was still wary of this statue due to the fact that he had recently encountered many monsters that were disguised as it. And after that, Shen recalled that Stella had said about the bastard whether she was familiar with this god. Adalo replied that she didn't know anyone who could be as ugly and shameless as a frog. After examining the place once again, Shen said that this place looks like where all the lizards escaped, and indeed they escaped there. They laid it out as if they were still cautious and wary of that armored lizard. But if they blocked Shen's path, he would be obliged to let them feel the power of his new card. While Shen was holding a new card and was ready to attack, the lizard boss appeared from behind. He was gray with orange-red stripes on his body. He swung his fire-colored axe and hit Shen, but he dodged thanks to Adalo's cries of caution. Shen immediately saw him and realized that this is the boss of the dungeon. The boss growled to show his strength to Shen, but the guy replied that he did not understand what he wanted to say to him. But Shen could say that he understood how angry he was. But Shen warned not to focus all his attention on him and summoned his armored dragon with the help of the card. He attacked the boss from behind, but he saw the dragon and immediately caught him by his paw. As it seemed, it will not be so easy. It turns out that the boss understood what Shen was up to. The guy started shouting at the dragon to come back faster and not attack the boss head on anymore. Adalo said that it's not so easy. Shen decided to ask her why this boss is different from all those that were before. She replied that this lizard is smart, so that's why it's different. This boss has a high intelligence. This monster is from the hero class. The dragon, meanwhile, said that he would give up his hand and sharply poked the boss with his claws right in the eye. After that he abruptly escaped. But he could not do without losses. The dragon thereby tore off his hand and it remained in the boss's teeth. Shen began to worry about his hand, because it would be more difficult for him this way. It turns out that the card has its own consciousness and the dragon himself made the decision to give up the hand in order to survive. Because of the pain, the boss began to swing the axe in different directions and make the dragon die. After he abruptly straightened up and the stripes that were on him began to burn bright red and at the same time holy, the roar was very loud. Shen asked what kind of roar it was that the fog had already dispersed. Adalo said it's not just a battle roar, it's a hero skill. After this roar, lizards crawled in and surrounded the guys from all sides. Adalo found out something. This place is the Sea Palace, this is the territory of the Sea God, and also the territory of this divine bastard. Shen asked what the girl was trying to say, to which he received the answer that the guys are similar in some way to this bastard. He was sealed in this statue and this is the boss's guard. And if Shen tries to awaken him, all it takes is to destroy the vessel. But thinking about it, the bastard girl gets goosebumps. After Shen's words that he trusted the boss's armored dragon, he took the speed boost card and ran through the lizards in order to break the vase. The boss saw this and wanted to stop him, but then there was a dragon who kicked him on the chin with all his might. And then the dragon said that he would kill the boss, but he did not give up and said that he would kill him faster. There was a fight between the dragon and the boss. The boss waved an axe and shouted for him to die. But the dragon replied that while he was here, he would not allow him to approach his master, and after these words jumped up and kicked the boss's head with all speed. The boss threw the dragon away from him in pain. But the dragon's task was to keep Shen safe and sound, so he continued to fight the boss further. Meanwhile, Shen continued to run to the statue of the god of greed and there was very little left before the guy broke the vase. But then his body began to weaken and everything blurred in his eyes, and Shen no longer ran, but rolled to the statue. The guy did not understand what was happening, because the body does not obey at all. Adalo told him to get up faster, because the lizards are getting closer and closer. Finally, the girl understood why Shen's body had weakened so much. This is all because the guy's body used the speed increase and exhausted the limit, so Shen fell. But Shen found a better explanation for this, all because Adalo maps are difficult to use. Without giving up and crawling further, Shen took out the cards and said the phrase that activates the card's treasury of luck. And after that blow of the north wind, it seemed to Shen that this was a good card. He was right. Adalo suggested that this card calls for a strong tornado. And no matter who, be it glowing rats or big dragons, they will all be blown away. Features this north wind only has a blowing effect, but it does not cause damage. It was a support card again and Shen couldn't even sit. Throwing the card, he fell again. And Adalo kept saying that it was all because Shen was too greedy and took all the cards. And if he drew only one card, he could summon the goddess of war whenever he wanted. But Shen asked what he would do if he got a bad card. The answer was that then, too, there would be nothing to worry about. Adalo cards have backup for beginners. And she added that Shen was looking for a faster way to free the god of greed. There was one problem from afar. The statue did not seem so gigantic, and now coming closer to Shen will not be easy. And there was another problem. It was that the north wind caused by the map turns the lizards right over their heads, and the north wind has a long duration. But its weakness is that it does not have a specific direction, and it blows in a random direction. There is a loud roar. The guys immediately realized that it was the howl of the boss, looking in his direction. They saw that the boss was holding a dragon in one hand that was passed out. The boss abruptly threw the so exhausted dragon aside and ran at Shen with a tela. The boss was getting closer and closer. He was running fast because of his strong legs. There was nothing left for Shen and he decided to use the speed card for the second time. Saying the name of the card, Shen felt very dizzy and red liquid flowed from his nose. Adalo said that if you forcibly use the card, then the body will not survive. It was already possible to think that Shen would not survive. But he gathered his last strength and jumped on the boss's head and began to kick him, saying that indicators and status are not important, especially at this moment. It's all about willpower. And pushing off, he flew like all lizards downwind. Taking the card for the third time, he threw it and flew at the speed of light into the very vase that the statue was holding. Adalo asked if Shen was alive, but the guy replied that thanks to the armored dragon's support skills, he barely managed to survive. The girl shouted to him that Shen was not obliged to take risks, especially since they could just open the teleportation gate and retreat. But Shen kept saying that someone like him living at the bottom would never miss a single chance to become stronger. Dripping red liquid, Shen added that it was time to go out and breaking the vase. Shen released the god of greed. He immediately began to say that not enough, never not enough money, not enough fun, not enough sleep, not enough, completely not enough, and opening his mouth, the god of greed ate the boss. Adalo only added that, as always, it was disgusting. Shen asked if it was true that this was the whole power of God. The girl replied so that Shen would not be so surprised, because he himself uses the power of God. The god of greed, after noticing Shen, began to ask questions like, "Is it really him? Is it really him?" After he said that he had been waiting for Shen for centuries and finally his dream finally came true, and that he was very touched. After he turned to Adalo, he began to say that she was his beloved and much respected goddess. But she rejected him and replied that he could only open his mouth in human form, and plugging his nose, added that the disgusting breath of God hits her right in the nose. In his pink clouds, the god of greed continued to talk about Adalo. He said that she was his toxic goddess and something that never changes, then told her to wait a little and that soon he would change his appearance to human. Shen asked if he was a fan of Adalo, to which the girl replied that he shut up and if Shen lost that word, she would not give him any more. God said that here he was Othello Barrows, but the girl called her correct name and shouted for them to stop tampering with her name. Transformed, the god of greed reincarnated into an African American pretty girl of short stature. Green shadows were on her eyes, small pigtails were braided on her head. Her very image was created from white shorts and a white top, a black cape and a golf. After he transformed, he immediately fell on Shen. God said that he had bargained for this body in fair trade, now he uses it, and in general it is more pleasant compared to the previous ones. Shen, who was under God, asked if he could move his legs. God jumped up and said he had already forgotten who this guy was. Adalo asked how Shen's condition was. He replied that this was a side effect and that Shen needed a little rest. God guessed that he understood what was going on and what the contractor was doing. The girl only muttered that God immediately reveals his true appearance. God asked about how much grace Shen received from the treasury of fate, to which Adalo said that God should give up and not dream, because the treasury of fate will not provide God with a single card. After these words, God switched to Shen and asked if he remembered that God had saved him from that lizard. After that, God abruptly changed his face to a terrible, creepy grimace and told Shen to return the debt. And this debt consisted in Shen transferring his power of the treasury of fate to pay the debt. But Adalo stopped the god who had already intimidated Shen, to which God replied so that she would not be angry and that when he got the cards, they would conclude a contract. The owner of this body is alive, and when the time passes, if we work together, in a suspicious laugh. Adalo said there was no way she would deal with the god of greed. But God continued to repeat his own, and that although he respects Adalo, but trade is trade, since God saved Shen's life, he must pay. Shen finally got back on his feet and told God that since he wanted to repay the debt, he was ready to make a deal. The guy can give the cards, but God willing. But instead, God called Shen a brave man and whether he correctly thinks he can negotiate with God. To which Shen replied that although he could not give God everything, he could give several cards to satisfy him. God immediately smiled from ear to ear and stretched out his hands to them. Adalo tried to stop Shen, because you can't bargain with the god of greed, he will suck everything out of the guy. God, having heard the conversation, said that they were interested in the method of restoring the strength of Adalo Barrows, and due to the fact that the girl would get her strength back, Shen would also become stronger. Only God will tell about this method for 2 cards and plus the payment for salvation. 3 cards in total come out. But Shen had a better Taurus. He would give God 7 cards, but instead God would not lie to him. Shen will take out 7 cards from the treasury and give them to God. Shen stretched out his hand to conclude the contract. But the guy was cunning and he would not give up his cards, but simply give God the cards he did not need with lizards, of which he had plenty. But the ease with which Shen handed over the cards, God was alerted and he asked why exactly 7 cards and what does it mean at all. Shen couldn't give an answer because he just wanted to fuse unnecessary lizard cards and didn't expect that God would be so nasty. God kept coloring about why exactly this number of cards Shen wants to give him. But then Adalo joined the conversation and saved Shen from questioning. She said that Shen would just give away 7 cards and nothing more, and he gives them away because he can't use them. And the fact that Shen is a weakling and is not able to use all the cards from the treasury. It worked right away and the god of greed believed. Adalo told Shen not to be scared. From the very beginning, what God is thinking about is the cards from the treasury. And if it doesn't violate the rules for dealing with God, then Shen won't be punished. But the god of greed is not just greedy. He is also stupid, only that he was deceived. But next time God will be more careful and careful. Finally, God stretched out his greedy streams and Shen, as agreed, gave him exactly 7 cards. The cards, like Shen, surrounded God and he began to shout that from today onwards, he, too, is a god who possesses the power of fate. After a few minutes of joy, God finally decided to see what kind of cards he had, and then he sees that all the cards are lizards. God began to say that it wasn't fair. But Adalo replied that didn't the god of greed say that the cards of fate were given to him and he could not break the contract in any way. God, almost crying, began to say that they were real devils. All the lizards clung to God. He asked if Shen had really told him that these lizards could evolve into dragons like Shen's. The guy replied that it was true and said a couple of tips that by giving the lizards love, they would also repay the same and thereby grow up to be who God wants them to be. But there is no God to thank. He said that with this deal that he concluded with Shen, he receives only losses and that next time he will repay doubly. God also added that he would show the real evolution of the lizards. After these words he disappeared. The guys were left with the task of taking the energy of the dungeon. Adelo asked if Shen knew the exact place. Yes, Shen knew where it was, but there was a small problem. This dungeon is under the protection of the hunter's office. Adelo remembered what kind of office it was. Those who use the name of justice to protect people and cut off people's ways to get money. Exploring a high-rank dungeon is also part of their duties. And the fact that Adelo needs their approval to enter the dungeon. And those who have not received approval, they are called illegal hunter bandit. As here, after the pronounced name, Zia comes out. He looked very angry and angry. You could immediately understand that someone was going to die. Kneading his fists, Zia began to say that he and Shen had met again and that for a long time Shen would claim that he knew nothing about martial arts. Shen was backing away and asking how he got here. Q comes in here and asks if the dungeon managers need permission to enter, and the fact that they came to Shen because they felt a strange magical flow, so they decided to check just in case. Shen began to stare intently at Q, because he could not remember where he had seen her. The girl exclaimed that they had met again and said that last time Shen was too hasty and did not introduce himself. Then she gave her name and Zia's name. Then Shen immediately remembered that Miss Secretary. When the guy finally got it, she continued talking. She is also a hunter and basically she stops herself from going berserk and sometimes she does the work of a secretary. Waving his hand and smiling awkwardly, Shen asked Q to stop Zia and that Shen was generally the first to leave. Then Shen was almost gone, when Zia used the tiger skill and began to say that there was no trace left of the dungeon bosses, and the fact that he did not allow someone with such a low status as Shen to clean up the whole dungeon alone. Adelo immediately guessed that Zia had signed a contract with a spirit of the highest rank. It was obvious from the man that he wanted to kill Shen and Q warned him not to kill. And after asking permission to find out how strong Shen is, he pushed off and flew straight at the guy. But then like a dragon, he fascinates Shen and takes the attack on himself. Because of the dragon's touch, Zia's flame began to disappear, but it was funny for him and the man immediately asked to show what the little lizard was made of, according to him. Q began to reflect on the fact that she had asked Zia to be lighter, but surprisingly, this monster has immunity to Zia's flame. The spirit of Zia is the fiery emperor, although he gives a flame that is visible everywhere, but ordinary fire burns a person at a high temperature, and the flame of the tribal emperor uses the will. Once in contact, he will not show until Zia Yu's will is extinguished. And this dragon is surprisingly the type of monster that has immunity to flames. Shen has already begun to worry about Zia Yu's strength due to the fact that he is too strong, because the dragon can be with him for many rounds. But Adelo clarified that it's not the armored dragon that does everything, but it's their powers that block Zia's abilities. The enemy's ability is the flame that the spirit grants him, and the armored dragon element is what the spirits hate the most. But it turns out that Zia is much stronger than the dragon. Grabbing the lizard, the man throws him to the ground and says that he did a good job and that he did not expect Shen to have a monster, then shouted for the dragon to get up and they will continue the battle. This whole fun was interrupted by Q. She came up from behind and told Zia Yu that he had forgotten his goal, because it was just to ask how Shen was able to clear the dungeon, while Shen was trying to lift the dragon that had fallen without strength. Then Zia responded to him and asked what their relationship with the lizard was. Zia Yu became very interested in why the monster, risking his life, saves Shen and in general who he is. Shen had no confidence in these guys at all and he wondered if their goal was to capture him. But after thinking it over, the idea came that their motive was not to detain him because of an illegal raid, but to understand why such a weakling as Shen was able to clear the dungeon of bosses. He sat next to his dragon and kept thinking what they wanted to do with him. Shen wondered if Yep should talk about the treasury of fate and what they would do if he told them about it. But Adelo immediately said that Shen should ensure his safety, and that he could not tell them about them. Even if Adelo and Shen are connected, the guy can't be sure that they won't take the cards. Shen did not understand what to do now, because he did not want a reward for his head or a wanted poster with Shen's face hanging on all the streets. Adelo came up with a more alternative version of this problem and offered to just confess to what she had done and just stay locked up for 6 months. Shen certainly didn't agree to that. The fact that Shen was talking to Adalo looked like he was just babbling under his breath. It made Ziyu a little mad and he got straight to the point. Shen and the dragon had to go with him in order to thoroughly interrogate Shen. The dragon's skill was abruptly activated before the regeneration of the highest class. After that, the lizard immediately received the skill elemental armor absorbing fire elements and reaches the limit. The dragon abruptly raises its tail and hits Ziyu with it. Thanks to the regeneration and the new evolution of the dragon, it has improved and has already become red. Adalo was again surprised that the lizard swallowed the power of the flame and evolved again. Dragon due to the fact that his skill has become 3 times faster. Not only Adalo was surprised, but also Q. That was the answer she was looking for. Shen Yuan then found the zone of the unknown goddess and was captured. When it was first opened, the dungeon had a rank of O or the highest difficulty. There was a lot of gold inside. Then they decided to ambush and take all the treasures for themselves. They also discovered that an ancient evil demon could be reborn. The difficulty immediately reached S rank, and Zia and Q began to keep it all a secret. The honor of the information unfortunately leaked because of a group of illegal spies. They tried to stop them, but it was too late. After the group entered, none of them were seen again, except for Shen. Those main participants were a rank, but only he survived from this team. There is only one explanation for all this. Shen Yuan received some unknown dungeon power, so he was able to clean up the dungeon. The dragon and Zia continued to fight. For the man it was only a joy, because he had not met such worthy opponents for a long time. And before that, Zia was just testing his strength, and now he will show it in all its glory. Using another skill that made him stronger and swinging his hand went to hit the dragon, Shen immediately takes out a speed increase card and uses it to help the dragon. Zia, as expected, did not have time to hit the lizard, as he quickly returned, which he did not even notice. But having missed, Zia still hit the ground and a big hole appeared from his blow. Shen was amazed by what he saw, due to the fact that Shen allegedly interfered with the fight between 2 strong men with the help of the card. This greatly enraged and angered Ziyu. His eyes lit up bright orange with rage. Adalo said that for that matter, if a man fights a man, then first of all, everyone should be men. Shen thought that the girl was hinting to him that he was not a man, but Adalo said that no one was saying anything about him, and she meant an armored dragon. The girl asked Shen if he could not see that it was not a dragon, but a dragoness, and Adalo began to assume that. Apparently, the dragoness had fallen in love with Shen, and for his sake she was even able to evolve, and Adalo already thinks that at this rate she will soon become a human. Shen didn't care that she liked him, but he didn't understand what kind of love it could be if they weren't even of the same race. It was not Adalo who answered this question, but Ziyu. He said that no matter what race, feelings between both sides are important, and Shen not only prevented his battle with the dragoness, but also dares to ignore. And apparently, until you break a couple of bones of Shen, according to Zia, he will not become more serious and attentive. After these words, the man jumped up and with the words a ferocious tiger descends into the mountains flew straight at Shen. There is still a little bit left before Zia kills Shen with his force of impact, as lightning strikes him here. Shen didn't understand at first where the lightning came from in the dungeon. Adalo said it was top-level magic and that there were so many spirit masters in the dungeon from where. And she must be a contract worker too. Q did it all. She didn't like the way Ziyu started behaving too much and the lightning strike only he could stop him. The girl said what should she do with him, because it's the same thing every time. And after that, he began to report to Zia, because they agreed to just check out the guys, with him making such a mess here. Shen asked about what it means to check and in general what right they have to arrest them. And even more so, as long as Shen insists that he entered the maze by accident, they have no right to detain him. And there are so many groups of lawless guards outside, and Q doesn't care. And even if Shen says what he needs, it doesn't concern them. Q replied that apparently Shen didn't quite understand what they were doing in the Hunters organization. Shen gave an answer to this that they monopolized the maze and were reaping other people's fruits from it. And what's not clear here, Q explained that they had a special management and they appeared due to the fact that they were needed in all the affairs of this maze. And to ensure the safety of researchers, hunters, testers, they gave an assessment, divided into classes, gave a suitable task for people, reduced the security of entering the maze according to the maxim. There are a lot of different unknown resources and the strongest monsters in the ruins. In addition to resources, inside there are the most valuable relics in the world that have long been ahead of our time. The so-called artifacts. Artifacts give unimaginable power if they don't keep track of them. It will be bad if they fall into the wrong hands. And Q and Zia not only have to protect the guys, but also have to investigate incidents that may be something related to artifacts, to determine whether the suspect is dangerous or whether he can fully use his powers. The shrewd Q said that it was obvious that Shen had received something from the nameless goddess, and the lizard that the guy controls is proof of that. Q is very sorry and she gives the main character only 2 choices. The first, strict punishment for non-admission of guilt, and she will definitely fulfill it. Second, they will all come back together and over a cup of tea they will chat. Well, after Shen's confession, Q hopes that he will use his artifact for good and thereby join Zia and Q. But Zia suggested another option. It's to arrange another round with this big guy and Shen, and then the guy will be able to think again. The fox girl interrupted the conversation and she said that if she were a puppy, she would not believe Zia and Q. And calling Shen a card-wielding guy, she said that she was his real partner. The vixen girl said that they should hold off on mining the artifacts of the dungeon. And all for the sake of love, for the sake of freedom. After introducing herself as Xiao Hong, the girl had short red hair that curled slightly, fox ears on her head, had a real tail. The girl looked very cute. She told Shen that under her guidance she would help free herself from the clutches of a vile organization of guards. And in the end she called him brother. Silence. Shen blushed and asked if her ears were real. Adelo said that he was going for these. Q had already heard about the fox somewhere. Her friend also decided to tell about his preferences. He said that he likes cats more, but he also likes foxes. Xiao said she was taking Shen with her and I hope the hunters don't mind. Ziyu replied that it could only be done over his dead body. The girl replied that as he wants, so she will do. Jumping from a cliff to Zia, she created many copies of herself, thereby creating an illusion. There were too many chanterelles of the same copy. It was impossible to distinguish one from the bad one. While the copies distracted Zia and Q, the real Xiao ran to Shen. The armored dragon thought she was a danger, pounced on her. The girl grinned and just dodged, thereby the dragon does not know her. Finally, Xiao crept up to Shen, and she said that he could trust her. Zia, who got out of the trap with illusions, ran up to the guys and was ready to attack when the fox takes the dragon by the shoulder and whoops. They disappear. Only a light pink smoke remained. The guys got out to freedom. Shen saw the sky above his head and said that he was definitely a criminal now. Xiao replied so that he wouldn't worry, because he had her, and then it was time to color Xiao about everything. Shen began to ask a lot of questions like, are the ears real? He won them so quickly that the girl did not have time to answer. Adelo also decided to ask one question about whether it is true that Xiao can see her and therefore which of the spirits sent her, the fox who came from another world. An ordinary day. All the soldiers greeted Mr. Chun as usual. The guy just came, but already asked how much is left until the end of the working day. Chun himself had shoulder-length hair, gray in color. One of the soldiers said that Mrs. Q ordered not to let Mr. go anywhere. It's been like a week since Chun didn't come. The guy waved his hand and warned that he had occupied the room and if someone was looking, then let them say that he was on an operational mission. Entering the room, the guy was already thinking about a healthy sleep. But then he was called by Zia's voice with an apology that the room was already occupied. Alas, Chun realized that he had to run and refused by saying that he would not interfere with them and that he still had unfinished business. But Ziyu stopped him with the excuse that he and Chun had not seen each other for a long time and it was not cultural to leave just like that. And just because Chun loves operational missions, then Zia just needs such a hardworking opera like Chun. But the guy started to talk himself out of it. Allegedly, he had to submit a lot of reports. Q called the two fools because they forgot who was passing all their counts. Chun said that what difference does it make, because being an opera means working overtime, and he is forbidden to work more than necessary. And why can't he just add a salary for lying down and getting high? Then Q just decided to get to the point. Since the new owner of the artifact has appeared, Chun will have to fight to the death again with a deathly strong opponent. Then the SMS came and the notification music from Chun was excellent. It was sung there that working for collective farmers, you can't burn your life at work. Q said she sent the data and asked to change the music to normal. The object they are looking for is Shen. Q gave an order for Chun to bring him to them and so that in the future no one could deceive him and turn any case against them. The girl hugged Chun from behind and Q said that it would be easier for the two of them to find a language, since they are contractors. Meanwhile, Xiao said that the hunter's office is looking for Shen because he doesn't have a license. And since that's the case, Xiao will help get it for the guy. The girl continued to talk, and he had some plan that when they show how strong they are, Shen immediately got a license. The guys approached the venue of the competition, and the fox warned that she had gone to sign up Shen and Atella for the competition, so she asks to wait for her. Adelo asked if it was dangerous for Zio to walk with such a view on the street, because there is no fox race in the world in which Shen lives. Shen explained that such a view is Zio's. They call labyrinth syndrome. Most of the guys who have been working in the maze for a long time, or hunters, from time to time something strange begins to grow. Perhaps this is due to the increase in their skills after defeating the monster, and it does not affect everyday life in any way. Adelo understood why this is happening. All because after defeating a monster, a person absorbs the soul of this monster. Usually, people who have an unstable psyche are more likely to be subject to physical changes. But Zio's appearance is her original appearance, and she does not belong to this world. The fox suddenly came running holding tickets to the competition. Shen called Adelo Arlo, so she responded, and the guy asked about the fact that with such a nice partner, did she think that this was the brightest moment in his life? Brother Shen, something is music to the ears. Adelo shouted that Shen is a fool. The girl called Shen and said that she got the tickets and they got permission to participate in the competition. Now they just have to win and that's it. Shen had one doubt: how can two people participate in a competition? Zio confirmed that they couldn't, but there were 3 of them, not 2. The guy looked at the participants' form and saw himself, Zio, and, in his opinion, a man named Dan Lai. Shen exclaimed and asked who this guy was and why his portrait was different from theirs. Zio said that it wasn't uncle, but auntie, that Shen couldn't see by her hairstyle. Zio told the truth that this pass is fake. Shen asked who she forged it for. The girl replied that it was for you. Shen thought he was Adelo, but people didn't see her. Then Zio explained that there was a Miss Lizard, but Shen was afraid that he would not be allowed with the dragon because she was not human. But Zio asked if she looked like a human and told one fact that in their world only her race has intelligence. Even Adelo approved of the fox's idea. After all, if you mess around a little with the perception of the world and work on your appearance, you can make a person. Then 2 people come up and abruptly start calling Shen garbage and advising him not to disgrace himself and not become a hunter if he can't. The appearance of one guy whose name was Wang began to change into a goblin, and with him was his sister named Liu Zio. Approaching Shen, Wang asked if it was really so bad to work as an assistant and if he couldn't just stay out of the way. Then Wang began to go into more personal topics that put pressure on the patient, and this was a topic about his father. Shen is very much here, said that he had already said enough. Since Zio was standing next to her, Wang approached her and told her not to hang out with Shen, since he was a slob and would only pull her back. She took Van by the finger and said that it was not cultured to poke people like that and threw the guy over himself. And then she added that she would not allow someone to insult someone from her team. After that, Shen thanked the fox for her help and that she stood up for him so much. Coming up to Van after that, the guy said that the current one is now much stronger than him. Wang was surprised by such courage and called for a fight. Shen agreed. After that guy left, Adelo asked if Shen would really compete. The guy said yes, because he had cards and a dragon, but Adelo reminded him that the dragon was also participating. The presenter stood in the arena and said his remark that he wanted to thank everyone who came to these amazing competitions among hunters despite his busy schedule, and the commentator's booth was in touch with the audience. After that, it was announced that the 16th team was the first to participate in the competition. The winners of the competitions will not only be able to receive a huge cash prize, but in the future they will have the opportunity to receive much more buildings. Finally, it was announced who was entering the arena, so it was the B-level hunter Wang Jun, as well as the A-level hunter Xiao Lao. The format of the competition consists of 3 rounds, up to 2 wins. And now for the guys, there may be a decisive round of Wang Jun in danger, even considering that Wang Huan is very capable, and hopes are pinned on him. But it is not an easy task to fight the enemy at a level higher than your own. Xiao Lao is very strong. While Shen was sitting in the stands, he met that red-haired man and his big bodyguard in a white mask. And with them the god of greed. It turns out they managed to unite. Dodd said that they met outside the maze and, unlike Shen, their transactions were successful, and they, like the god of greed, hate Shen. The guy clarified that their deal was not successful. Shen asked the uncle if he had made a deal with the spirit of greed. The man replied that he really thought that after what Shen had done, he would just let him go. Shen replied that just after he was thinking about how the uncle would take revenge, this self-proclaimed spirit of greed appears in front of Shen. But the uncle said that now after the deal he has nothing. Shen asked what the deal was, to which God replied that Uncle had made a wish that if God was really the spirit of greed, then you should help me find Shen and teach him a good lesson. Well, God did it, and in exchange they became his servants. So Shen had a great time. One whined, the other stood silently, the third tried to trade. As a result, Van somehow won and moves on to the next round. The presenters announced the following two teams. A team consisting of Shen Yuan and Hao Yuan was called and told to get ready for the competition. Finally, it came through Shen, only he lost Xiao and Adelo. But they were right there. Xiao brought the dragon. To be honest, her appearance did not look much like a human. Adelo said that by changing the records of fate she made it so that the whole world knows about the existence of such creatures as the armored dragon, and no magic can see this change. Here the presenters asked the participants to enter the arena. The god of greed said that they would go and see each other in the arena. Shen repeated that his opponent was Hao Yuan. The god replied that they were. Lucky so led, the first opponent in battle will be the spirit. Both teams entered the arena. Both teams are apparently newcomers. There are ordinary people in both teams. This battle was intriguing. The presenters immediately realized that the Shen Yuan team was named after the leader of this team. In addition to the Red Fox, the team also has Dan Lee, who escaped from the Hollywood blockbuster. Very charismatic characters gathered in this team. But in the other team, however, not just collective farmers gathered, who came from the financial organization Kukai Iron Hand Bob and the well-mannered scoundrel Jia Chun, who is a lawyer.